Michael, thank you so much for taking time for this. I really appreciate it. As we start, can you talk maybe a little bit about your current role and what's in your purview?
Yeah, so I'm the chief marketing officer here at Acronis. So I'm responsible for all things marketing, from branding, communications, demand generation, analyst relations, product marketing, all things marketing.
Awesome. Um, I noticed you have a pretty interesting career. I saw McAfee, HP, Imperium in your background. So it seems like you took many bites out of that apple in kind of different stage companies. But
Yeah,
what's the genesis? How did you get into cybersecurity marketing?
yeah. So I started, which I think is invaluable really for anyone. I started in sales. So years ago, after I got out of undergrad with an engineering degree, went into sales. Super valuable. In fact, I would encourage anyone to do that earlier in their career, the better. I've got two daughters who I'm pushing really hard, regardless of the direction they want to go, to do sales, because it teaches you really the essence of understanding customers and problems and solving things. So I had the sales experience. Um, Went back to school, got a business degree, and came out and was an SE for a while. And it was in technology, but at the time, and this was 20 years ago or so, security threats were really coming into the market, right? Where people started
Mhm.
realizing that you could attack applications or systems or whatever, and it was interesting to me. And so I went that way into McAfee, and then I've been in security ever since. So 20 years or so.
Awesome. Awesome. And kind of in this vein, cybersecurity, I think, as an industry has exploded in scope. And I think there's a much better understanding from people outside of it, executives, directors of the board. No one wants
Yeah,
to see their name or the company name and the headlines and kind of
true.
negative
Yeah,
lights. And I think there was just and technology also matured both on the for the good guys and the bad guys, quote unquote.
yeah,
Um, so it seems as a result, a lot more people are looking to make a career in cybersecurity and in general, and cybersecurity
yeah,
marketing in particular. For those who are kind of maybe more junior, who are just starting in their roles, or even from college, just figuring out which path to take. You mentioned that you started in sales, which is very interesting because I think it gives you a perspective from the other side of the aisle. But
yeah.
what would you recommend for someone who's just more junior and figuring things out? What should they spend their time um, on to
Yeah.
set them up for
Well,
success?
I mean, I think you said something there that was really interesting, and I think it will always be there. And this is a good guys versus bad guys, and it will be forever. It always has been. I mean, it started with people stealing cattle hundreds of years ago to robbing stagecoaches, right? And before you even had like electricity, basically, um, uh, you will always have this. And so it's a market where I think there will always be opportunity for the good guys to fight and beat the bad guys. So it's a fantastic market for anybody to get in. Just generally, I think that what I would recommend is look at sales. Look at going to sales for security. You will understand, even if you pick an area. The two big areas for security are network security and endpoint security. And I'm kind of generalizing, right? But those are
Mhm.
the big parts of the market. Then you've got other ones like encryption and access and mobile and all, but really it's network security and endpoint security. Um, Look for a role in either one of those doing sales, and you will learn not just what you have in your particular area, but you're going to understand the problems that customers have. And the more you can understand problems, regardless of what your career is, the better you're going to be. And I've focused on cybersecurity, and understanding the problems that customers have there. But I would recommend it in any career. Like, what is the problem, right? If it's, I don't know, if you're selling groceries, right, or you have a laundromat or a gas station. If you understand the customer's problems, you're going to continue to do well. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a sales role.
Interesting. Well, I think to your point, and it's interesting that you mentioned that you're pushing your daughters towards starting in sales because in the end of the day, everyone, whether they realize it or not, everyone is in sales.
That's
I need
right.
to sell
Yeah.
my kids on why they need to go to school and do their homework, right? So I had to sell my wife and being with me and not with someone else. So it's like
Yeah.
if you put if you, it's persuasion in the end of the day. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's certainly it's certainly everyone's job, whether they realize they wear that hat or not. But what you're saying is it's actually very interesting. I just came back from a cybersecurity marketing conference in DC, and it was a very interesting event, but made me realize that the relationship between sales and marketing is not always amicable. So, and I think it's because not at every company the incentives are aligned, and there is always kind of a little bit of finger pointing. So I'm very curious about how companies set up the org structure and the incentives so that the actions are aligned. So both teams realize that kind of they have one North Star, they're all rowing in the same direction. So from your experience, what can you share on how to set up this relationship so it's productive and aligning actions against the goal, the common goal for the organization of the company?
Yeah, I think I look at it and where it's been successful in my career. I look at there's these three layers of alignment. The first one is it's the relationship between the head of sales and the head of marketing. If they have a strong relationship and rely on each other, they support each other, and most importantly, trust each other, the organizations will follow that. It happens all the time. So whatever that relationship's like, if the sales and marketing leaders are not pointing fingers, not throwing each other under the bus, they're jointly trying to get to the number or whatever the goal might be. What you see is the organizations do that, but if the organizations follow them. But if they're fighting with each other all the time, it gives the organizations under them the kind of the green light to go do the same thing, and it just becomes chaos, right? And it's dysfunctional. So that first level is you have to have that trust between the head of sales and the head of marketing. The second one is, what are the macro goals that you're aligning behind? It's not that complicated, right? But because there's usually just two or three, which is what's the ARR, what's the number of customers we're trying to recruit, or what's the upsell number. It's usually sales metrics, right? It's like or business metrics of and so if you're aligned behind that, it gets everyone's kind of rowing in the same direction. Beneath that, you have more, which is this third level. You have more operational metrics, and those they need to be aligned, but they can be different. So as an example, I'll just pick one of each. On the sales side, you may have an operational metrics that is the number of outbound calls you do every day. That could be one that you measure salespeople on. On the marketing side, you may say it's cost per lead, or it's number of trials that you get, or number of conversions from whatever. Mm-hmm. So you have that operational number, which they need to be in the same area, but they're different because they're driving different behavior. So you've got at the top level, you need the sales and marketing leaders aligned and trusting each other. Then you've got the kind of the company or the sales and marketing goals, which usually are revenue related. And then you have the operational metrics beneath that.
I understand. So looking at the goal as one thing, and then just basically creating metrics from top down that align along the same kind of overarching objective.
Yeah, and what I've seen too, and it's kind of bewildering why it happens, but it does, is as simple as it seems like we should all be looking at the same data, it seems like it doesn't always happen. That someone will be looking at a report from Salesforce, another person has a spreadsheet, another person has something that gets pulled out of something else, and the ability or to get that aligned so that everyone is looking at the same thing. So when you bring up your screen, you're all looking at the same number, and it's not, well, my number is this or their number is that. There was an interesting comment. This was years ago. Someone from Salesforce was coming in to sell us Salesforce, the tool, and they used it to a degree where they said, if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. There's no outside reporting. There's no outside metrics. It's all right there. And I'm not saying that everyone has to use Salesforce, but it's a way to get everyone aligned. So whatever the tool is, it just has to be the same thing, that everyone's looking at the same data.
Well, it's got a normalizing function, so to make sure that everyone is on the same page at all times. It makes a lot of sense. But what's interesting is I think talking about numbers and metrics, I think everyone is kind of questioning, well, we have this initiative, that initiative, but what's the return on investment? And I think attribution is a big theme in marketing in general. and kind of, and with this with this in mind, there's a new kind of theme, which is people talk about the dark funnel, the conversations that are not trackable, the conversation that happen in the hallways, the conversation that happen in the private Slack channels, or emails, or over coffee with colleagues, that drive demand but cannot be captured by, I know, Sixth Sense or Bombora. And I think there's a different take from the marketing community. Some of them just saying, look, we do kind of top of the funnel upstream demand generation, but we're really focusing on intent data. And others say, well, we do that, but we don't want to be relegated to lead generation, to order takers. It's really, for us, driving demand is really about engaging professionals who are more upstream in their customer journey, and that's kind of our focus. What's your take on this? I mean, how far up or down the customer journey
Yeah,
are you focusing your efforts?
So the hard part on that is, so the ideas behind all the things you just said are accurate, right? You want to sell holistically. You want to sell to an entire account. You don't want to just sell to a person to get a lead. You want to build top of funnel. You want to build awareness. You want to accelerate through the funnel. So you have all of these. The hard part with some of the more undefined or untrackable items, which you know that they're right and they make sense. The hard part is, how do you prove that when you're having that discussion with the rest of your leadership team, right? When, you know, the CFO or the CEO says, I gave you $1 and what did you get for it? So you have to be able to show that return and take some of those soft items and at least convey the assumptions you're making of why you get to why you're getting to the return you're getting. I will almost always come back to influence or attribution and just say, when you're in B2B, like the example that I'll give a lot is in B2B, as soon as you have more than one activity and one contact in an account, things get complicated, right? If you have one activity, like if you have one person in an account and you send them and they come to a webinar, and you'll know if they bought or not. But as soon as you introduce any other variable, like a salesperson or a data sheet or a white paper or an event, you don't know which one it actually was. So you have to do, I mean, the typical is like, is it the first touch, last touch, or is it kind of a combination of touches where you do some averaging? It's important for the head of marketing and the head of sales to have the same view and be able to carry that back to the executive team and say, this is how we look at what the return is. We look at by buckets, because you know that you want to surround an account as much as you can. And so you want to hit them with multiple things so that they are likely to buy from you. But to be able to say, like, webinars return 1.2x or a data sheet returns 0.5, like, it's impossible in B2B. In B2C, it's a different deal because you don't have these intermediaries, right? You basically, you know, you have a bag of potato chips and you say, it's priced at $2. Let me get a 25% coupon and see what that does. And you know, kind of the cause and effect. It's different in B2B. And it's important that sales and marketing are aligned on that when you're talking to the senior team, because you do ultimately what you want to do as a marketing person is you want to know who you're talking to, like the problem that people have you're talking to, but then you want to surround them so that they, wherever they go, if they're online, they see you. Mm-hmm. If they go to a conference, they see you. If they go to a trade show, and not all of that is as binary as this worked or didn't work. It's all of the things in combination.
It's a very interesting point, because I think a lot of companies who are trying to solve this, they push for self-attribution. So when someone is signing up to be a client, there is a box that says, where did you find us? How did you hear about us? But even the person, they may not even remember.
That's right.
The first conversation that sparked interest was, as a colleague mentioned in passing, that they used this particular solution 2 years ago. Yeah. But there were so many other touches along the way that this first one.
There's some studies that show that however the list is, like people just get through that quickly. They really don't take a lot of time to think, well, where did I really hear about them? They just pick the first one to go on to get through the question. And so,
right. But even if it's qualitative, even if they have to type in the box, they're like, well, they'll pick the first one they remember, but that might not be. Yeah. But even that, I mean, you can have a time series of all the different touches, but then which one is more important versus the other. It's all very qualitative, and some of it,
Yeah.
even the person, the account, they may not even be fully aware of what drove that particular decision,
That's right.
which is
That's
which
right.
makes things obviously a little bit more complicated.
Right, but that's why what you want is like, this picture that I always have in my head is this chart, and it's just like a bar chart, and you look at all the opportunities, you look at the different things you've engaged with, and then you add up the opportunity, you allocate it to an activity that
Right.
appeared with the account, and then you just end up with a directional bar chart that says, oh, events are the highest, and then webinars are next, and then white papers, and then trials, or contact me. But you at least get this idea of, yeah, if for whatever reason I had to focus more, I'm definitely going to go on the ones that seem to be appearing in more opportunities than not. But it's not absolute, right? It's not like, you wouldn't say if trials are $10 out of 100 and webinars are $2 out of 100, you wouldn't say, well, I'm just going to quit webinars. You can't really do that, but you can get an idea of like what's more effective or not.
Exactly. I mean, to your point, some of the companies look at the sources of leads, and they realize that someone is punching the name of the company in Google search bar. So for them, Google is the source, but it's really harvesting intent. It's not generating intent. So they invest in keywords and whatnot, not realizing that really they need to be engaging people at stages that are way more upstream than the stage I'm ready to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's well, and in terms of kind of different tactics and strategies, I know it's kind of ebbs and flows, and it seems like there was a new flavor of the month, and it was inbound for a while that HubSpot made popular, and then people realized that only a fraction of a percent converts. Then it was industry events, I would say Black Hat, but those are getting Evanta, but those are getting increasingly expensive, and there was a pause during COVID. Then for a while it was webinars and virtual roundtables. So it looks like obviously there are many tools in the toolbox, but it seems like there was kind of a new flavor of the month. So what are the top 3 things that are working for you now in terms of driving demand?
Well, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, but we see we generally see this fatigue with Zoom and online, right? So webinars where they still have a role, the attendance, the registrations on those are trending down at this point, and not surprising because people want to get out. So what do they want to get out to? Well, we're seeing an uptick in like in-person events, either our own event that we might host live with people, or industry events that you need to be exhibiting at or sponsoring at. So we see right now, that kind of that cycle, that more people are interested in doing things in person or live, where they're doing less online. Digital is always on, right? I mean, that you can't get. I mean, that's where do you go when you first have interest in something? Well, you're going to go to Google or Bing, and you're going to do a search. So you always have to be there. So that's sort of like steady state, and what you want to make sure that you're close enough to your customers to know what is it that they're searching for, what's the problems they use, so you can continue to optimize that. So that's sort of always there, the digital channel. But the right now I'm seeing in-person events peaking, online events kind of going down, and I expect that'll change again. They'll probably flip 6 to 9 months out from now.
Certainly. I talked to a number of cybersecurity marketers at the conference last week in DC, and some of them, and I think there was actually a survey that was circulated, and I found it very interesting. Approximately 40 or so percent of marketers said that looking at 2023, they see kind of challenges ahead, and both in terms of kind of the scope and the resources they're going to get, and kind of the remainder, 60% said it's going to be smooth sailing, meaning full steam ahead, no changes at all. And I know it's probably going to be moving target because not everyone has set up plans for next year. But what is it for you and your team? How do you see 2023?
Yeah, we're pretty optimistic by it. I mean, we're in a our market is so our customers are partners or service providers, right? So we go to the MSP. So we build the technology for the MSPs to then service their end users. So they they package what they need and deliver it as a service. The trend that we're on, continues to grow. I don't see any end in sight where security is delivered as a service, right? And security being from data protection to backup to disaster recovery, all the things related to security. We build that technology, and this trend of security being delivered as a service more than just as an individual point solution continues to grow. So we're super bullish, super optimistic on 23 and beyond. Broadly in the market, security is always, like we talked about before, it's good guys versus bad guys. So it's like, it's almost never ending. You can't not invest in security. So that is a nice tailwind for people to have of just security in general. In our space in particular, this move to delivering security as a service continues to have a huge growth. I mean, we're experiencing hyper growth right now as well, and we don't see any
It's amazing.
Well,
yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense, because I think I saw some of the stats that an average organization, they have 40 to 60 solutions, different kind of vendors that they have a relationship with, which is, I think, is untenable. So you'd much rather have one relationship that is responsible for making sure that all those solutions interoperate, that patches and upgrades, and making sure that everything runs and nothing is exposed, rather than having to have 60 conversations. Just
I mean, that complexity is ridiculous. I mean, you think about, even if it was a fifth of what you just said and there was 10 solutions, imagine trying to manage 10 solutions. So make sure that just the mechanics of, like, you have the right number of licenses, and you're paying when you're supposed to pay, and keeping that part up. And then on top of that, you have to continuously do updates, make sure there's no vulnerabilities. Make sure people use the product like it's supposed to be used. They don't disable it. I mean, it's crazy to think of that, the complexity of having all of these vendors. How do you solve that? And so you have the operational problem, but as you increase the number of vendors, you increase your risk, right, and your exposure, because you just have more places where someone could attack you. Complexity is almost like, it's almost as bad of a problem as the intent of the bad guys. Right. And the bad guys like that, because, you can't be looking at everything, an infinite number of things all at the same time. It's impossible.
Well, I think it's interesting, because it seems like we will have some tougher times ahead, and I think there will be, not everyone will stay standing after this is over, because I think a lot of companies raised incredible amounts of venture funding, and I think they will have a hard time raising the next round. And it seems like the IPO window, at least for now, is temporarily closed. So companies like Palo Alto and other SentinelOne, who are increasingly acquisitive, I think will drive some of the consolidation. And I think the startups people will find it harder. I mean, obviously, if it's a revolutionary solution, I think there's never shortage of funding, but I think it's just this wave. It seems like for years, every week there is a new company with a product that raised like millions, if not tens of millions of funding. And as soon as they have a product, it's their email and your email. It just adds to the overall background content.
Sure. Well, and there's a famous quote. I think it was, I don't know if it originated with him, but Warren Buffett gets credit a lot for it. Which, when the tide is rising, everyone's a genius, right? And so you're investing, and everything's awesome, and the evaluations are what they should be, and everyone's like super smart. And then when the tide goes out, you see who's actually managing the business and has a handle on the business and investing appropriately and staffing appropriately, and
absolutely,
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what the future brings. I know we're coming up on time, but just, I guess, last question is, imagine you have a crystal ball and I can see into the future, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, cybersecurity marketers, what is everyone going to be talking about? Whether it's, a new way of thinking, a new tool, a new way to engage potential clients. What do you think will be top of mind?
I think one of the things that I've been seeing people talk about, and I think it may become more mainstream, where people may start to hear more, is the you've got a lot that's being invested into AI and machine learning to combat threats. Well, the bad guys can throw data at those things to manipulate them, right? And so you have this like counter intelligence that's happening at the artificial intelligence layer, and I think that may become something we talk about more, where as these engines or these algorithms are learning, they're not just learning with good data, they're learning with data that maybe is being fed to them from the bad guys, and by doing that they end up opening vulnerabilities to it. So I think using that technology, like it started with the good guys using the technology, the bad guys start using it, we're going to start to see a flip, and then something else is going to happen. But I think we'll start to hear more about that in the future.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think at the end of the day, there will be two bots, the good guy bots and the bad guy bots, like duking it out. And actually, to your I actually saw, I think it was one of the conferences, one of the webinars, I saw something that was just, I was totally blown away, and it was basically a generated voice. So it was not a real person calling a technician, and the conversation was, "Hey, I'm VP of marketing. I'm on a trip. I'm in a cab, and I lost my phone. I need a bypass code."
Right.
and just providing enough data to convince that person that it was a legit request. And this was just totally, it's scary.
And it probably sounded like I mean, you could see like,
no, it sounded like someone with the authority, with legitimate requests, who were just in a pinch and asking for help. So for a technician who's in a help desk, the way they think and the mental model is to help, right? So, and if it's legit.
Well, think about this, Misha. I mean, you're online a lot, and I'm online. I mean, a lot of the executives in companies, or even like just people that are out there talking with customers or doing presentations, we're all online. So you have our voices. I mean, how hard would it be to take your voice, put some sort of bot behind it that uses your voice, calls its help desk and says, "Oh, I need to reset my password," and it sounds just like you. I mean, that has to be coming.
It's very, very scary.
Yeah.
Well, that's I guess good news for you. I think everyone will need backups and cybersecurity. Awesome. Well, Michael, this was lots of fun. If people want to find you, are you on LinkedIn? What's the best way to reach out?
So LinkedIn, search my name, Michael Callahan. I'm at Acronis, Chief Marketing Officer at Acronis. And I'm also happy if someone ever has a question or wants to contact me. I don't mind giving my email. It's my name, michael.callahan@acronis.com.
Awesome. Michael, thank you so much.
Okay, you too, Misha. Thank you.